Okay, so let's talk about linear functions. What do I mean when I say linear function? Y equals what? Mx plus b. There are different ways. So y equals mx plus b, of course, is everybody's favorite. That's easy to grasp from, tells us a lot of information. Standard form, did you guys do standard form last year? Yeah. So that's one that does pop up sometimes, ax plus by equals c. In standard form, the rules are a has to be a positive number, a, b, and c can't be fractions or decimals, and they have to have a greatest common factor of 1. So if it's like 2x plus 3y, or 2x plus 4y equals 8, you would need to divide everything by 2. It has to be in the reduced form. All right. So we'll start just a few basic concepts here. Slope tells us how steep our line is. And remember that is rise over run. Or if you have ordered pairs, change in y over change in x. Or y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Does this all sound familiar, hopefully? You've done it for a couple years. That might be called the average rate of change, especially if we're looking at word problems. When they ask you to find the average rate of change of something, it just means find the slope. Change in y over change in x. All right. In general, I'm just going to tell you I'm not nice and I don't print graph paper for you for homework. Don't go ask Mrs. Keller for graph paper. I will be angry. You guys can draw an XY grid and plot points. Okay, we're big kids now. We can do that. But for your notes, I was nice and didn't print them. So, if I asked you to graph this, what would you do? F of x is the same as y, so this is y equals mx plus b. 7 is the b. What is that? Yeah, that's your y-intercept. So we hit the y-axis at 7. What's the slope of negative 3, tell me?
Down 3 over...
You have to have at least 2 points if you want to do more because you can't draw a straight line like me. You're welcome to do more. And then we just extend that and we know it just keeps going. All right, what would be the domain of this line? How do we write that now? As we go from left to right, this side's going to the left and that one's going to the right. What's my range? Same thing. We have one end going down and one end going up. So eventually it hits everything. Will every line have a domain of range of negative infinity to positive infinity? No, which ones won't? Horizontal and vertical. If it's not horizontal or vertical, domain of range are everything. All right, so if I ask you to graph x equals negative 3, there's no y in this problem. So what does that mean? Vertical line at negative 3. What's the domain of this vertical line? What x's do we hit? Just negative 3. Since we don't have a starting and a stopping point, it's just a single value, we can't do an interval, so we just put it in the solution set. The only thing in my domain is the number 3. But what's my range? All real numbers, so negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, you guys do the next one. So f of x is the same as y. When you have y equals a number, what kind of line is it? Horizontal line at negative 3. What's the domain? What is the range? Negative. All right, so far so good? What if I don't give it to you in y equals mx plus b form? What if I give you the equation in standard form? How can you graph that? and then divide by 4. So what's the y-intercept of this one? 0. Slope is negative 3/4, so you can go down 3 and right 4, or you can think of it as up 3 and left 4. Domain and range? Negative infinity, positive infinity. So if it's not in y equals mx plus b form, just solve for that first. Okay, let's talk about slope a little more. What is the slope of a vertical line? Undefined. Remember your slope due video? What's the slope of a horizontal line? 0. All right, so that is something that we need to know. There'll probably be a question on your test when we get to this that has a vertical line and says, what's the slope of this? Okay, easy points if you know what you're doing. Let's practice if I give you 2 points and ask you to find the slope between them. So the formula is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So this is my x1 and my y1. This is my x2 and my y2. So if we set up our slope, y sub 2 is negative 6 minus 4 over 2 minus negative 2. So we get negative 10 over 4. We do need that in lowest terms, so that is negative 5 over 2. Could you say negative 2.5? Yeah, absolutely. For graphing purposes, it's a lot easier to do the slope as a fraction, so we typically leave it in fraction form, but a decimal is fine as well. Why don't you guys do B? 8 minus 8 over 5 minus negative 3 is 0 over 8, which is just 0. So what kind of line is this? Horizontal. What makes it undefined? How would you know? 0 on the bottom. If this was flipped and when you did your slope you got 8 divided by 0, that would be undefined and that would be a vertical line. Okay, let's practice drawing a graph if I give you, instead of the equation, just some information about it. So if I give you this point and slope, how do we draw the graph? What do we do first? Start at the point, negative 2, negative 3, and then slope, 4/3. So from there we go up 4 over 3. This says, side note, is this line increasing, decreasing, or constant? Increasing. How could you know it was going to be increasing before you've ever graphed it? Right, your slope is positive, so that's increasing. When your slope is negative, you get a decreasing line. When do you get a constant? When the slope is 0, a horizontal line. Good. All right, you guys do B. Graph that one for me. So that's a negative 1, 5. Slope is negative 2/3, so down to over 3, or you could go up 2 and back 3. So we get this. Last thing I want to do. Let's look at this problem. In 2001, DVD sales were $12.7 million. In 2006, sales were $19.8 million. Find the average rate of change. What is average rate of change? Slope. What do we need to find a slope?
Pairs.
Two ordered pairs. Okay. Can we write two ordered pairs from this?
Yes.
What would the first one be?
2001, 12%.
And the second one?
2006.
So then we do our slope. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1.
Mm-hmm.
1.24, if my math is right. Or not, did I do something wrong? Nobody's answering me. Oh, did I just transpose digits? One of those days. Because I did the wrong thing right here. Okay. So if I ask for an average rate of change like this, I would expect units because it's word problems. So what does that 1.42 mean? So go back to this fraction. The 19.8, the 12.7. What were those numbers? $1 million. What are 2006 and 2001? And a division sign is like what word? Per. So it's $1.42 million, or you could use a dollar sign, per year. So in these types of word problems, I would expect units on those. That means the average rate of change, it's rising about 1.42 million every year. Okay, you guys do B. And make sure you put your label on the end. So we have 1997, 16.7, 2002, 13.3. So we set up our average rate of change, just your slope. And what did you get? Okay, why is this a negative? What does that mean? It's decreasing, which makes sense, right? VCRs are kind of a thing of the past. You know, in 1997 they were still a big deal. By 2002 they were kind of going away. Now it would be even lower, we would expect. What would my label be? So it's saying that it drops 0.68 million every year. All right, is that one okay with you guys? All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the next section, but I do have a modification. On this handout that I gave you, your notes handout, it has an assignment. I do want you to go ahead and just mark off 66 and 76. You don't have to do those two. So we're not doing the last two unless you just think they're fun and you want to. So now let's hit the second section. Actually writing equations for our lines. So first thing under this section, equations of lines. We already talked about slope-intercept in standard form on the previous handout. Point-slope formula is another one. Did you guys use that one at all last year? Okay. So in point-slope formula, x and y are the variables x, y. X sub 1 and y sub 1 are the x and y values from an ordered pair that you plug in, and m is your slope. I will never force you to use point-slope formula. Some people really like it, and if you have a point and a slope given, it's maybe a little bit faster, but it is one more thing to remember. So if you don't know it, it's okay just to stick with y equals mx plus b, and when I go through these, I'll show you both ways and you can kind of decide what you like. Alright, so if I ask you to write the equation of this line. So I'm going to do, I've got a couple of these. I'm going to do this first one using the point-slope formula. So it's y minus, what's y sub 1? Negative 5 equals m, which is my slope, negative 2, times x minus x sub 1, which is 3. So y minus negative 5 would be y plus 5 equals negative 2x plus 6. Subtract over your 5, so you get negative 2x plus 1. If you didn't want to use point-slope formula, how would you have gotten it? To use this, we need m and b. We have m, we have to plug in the point to find b. So the y value at that point is negative 5 equals m, which is negative 2, times the x, which is 3, plus b. Add my 6 over and I get b equals 1. So your equation y equals m, which was negative 2, times x plus b, which is 1. So two options. Point-slope formula maybe saves us a step, but it's really not a big deal. So what do you guys prefer? Does anyone use point-slope formula? A couple people. So you're welcome to use whichever. B. What do we need to do here? So slope, y sub 2, so negative 4, minus y sub 1 is 2, over x sub 2, which is 2, minus x sub 1, which is negative 3. So we get negative 6/5. Then what do you do? Right. Pick one of these points. So let's just say I want the first one. Then you can either plug into point slope or y equals mx plus b. Most of you preferred the second, so I'll do that. So my y is 2, m negative 6/5. The x of the point I chose is negative 3 plus b. Negative 6/5 times 3 is 18/5. Subtract that over. And get negative 8/5. So the final equation, y equals m, negative 6/5 times x plus b, which is negative 8/5. I want you guys to do the next one. get a slope of -1/2. So then take one of your points and plug into your equation. So the y-intercept is 3. So equation y equals -1/2 x plus 3. And we know to graph that, I don't expect when you're drawing your own grid, you don't have to do anything too fancy. You don't have to label everything as long as you're just counting by ones. Y-intercept is 3, down 1/2. So it looks something like that. Alright. Are we okay with this stuff? If I give you the information, you can write the equation? Remember doing that? If I give you the graph, can you write the equation? Let's see. So I'm asking for some different things here. I want slope, intercepts. We haven't talked about that yet. There's x-intercept and the y-intercept. All we've touched on so far is the y-intercept. And the equation. Okay, how do you find slope from your line? What do we need to do? Take 2 points that we can tell exactly. So maybe 1, 1, 0, 3. You can either write those out as ordered pairs and calculate slope doing the slope formula, or you could think rise over run. If I start at this one to get to the next, I have to rise 2 and go backwards 1. So we get a slope of -2. X-intercept. Can I tell exactly where this hits the x-axis? Not really. It looks like it's about 1.5, but I want to know for sure, so let's come back to that one. Y-intercept. Can we tell exactly where this hits the y-axis? Where? 3. If I asked for that as an ordered pair, what would that point be? 0, 3. Okay, so we have enough for the equation now. Y equals m is -2 times x plus b, which is 3. I can use that equation to get my x-intercept exactly, since I couldn't tell for sure from my graph. How would we do that? If you're on the x-axis, what does y equal? 0. Could I plug a 0 in for y in this equation? So if I did that, I get 0 equals -2x plus 3. Add over my 2x, divide, and we get 3/2, or 1.5, like we said it looked like. As an ordered pair, that would be 3/2, comma, 0. Remember, intercepts are where you hit the axis, so the opposite variable is always 0. We just have a little bit left to talk about. Can we do it? So horizontal and vertical we've already touched on. We know that the slope of a horizontal line is 0. If I give you a point on that line, you can actually write the equation just from that one point. What does the equation of a vertical or of a horizontal line look like? Y equals a number. So if it goes through the point AB, what's the y equal to? B. All right, if we have a vertical line, again, I could write the equation just from one point. What's the equation of a vertical line? X equals A. Are both of these functions? No. Which one is? The horizontal. If you think about a vertical line, it fails the vertical line test. So only the horizontal is a function. What's the equation of the x-axis? The x-axis is a horizontal line, so we know it has to be y equals something. what's the equation of the y-axis? X equals 0. It's a vertical line, and every point on that has an x value of 0. All right, last piece, parallel perpendicular. What does parallel mean? Same slope. What's perpendicular mean? Opposite reciprocals. Okay. Let's do a standard form example, because we haven't done that yet. So this one, I want the standard form of the line going through the point 3, 5 and parallel to this line. So parallel means they have the same slope. How would I find the slope of that line? And we divide everything by 5. So we get y equals -2/5 x plus 4/5. So parallel means the same slope. What's the slope of that line? That's all we need this line for. So ignore it now. Now I know my slope and I know my point. So plug into y equals mx plus b, or the point formula. So if we add over the 6/5, b is 31/5. So my equation. Am I done? No. Because what did my directions say? Standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. So I have to move my x over, so if I add it, okay, standard form, x has to be positive, and it is. X and y have to be on the same side, and they are. And we can't have any fractions. So what would eliminate these fractions? Multiply everything by 5. So we get 2x plus 5y equals 31. Very last example, perpendicular to the same line. So if the slope of this line was -2/5, what would be the slope of the line perpendicular? Positive 5/2. You flip it and change the sign. Okay, you guys do this equation in standard form for me. We know what our slope has to be, and we also know our point was given in the problem. We're still going through the point 3, 5. So, plug into your equation. We have to subtract that over, so you get -5/2 for the y-intercept. So our current equation is y equals 5/2 x
May I have
minus 5
everyone's attention, please?
So what would I have to do now? And then, right, why do we have to do -2 this time? We need our x to be a positive. So that would give us a 5x minus 2y equals 5. Any questions? Okay, so this assignment I am going to modify as well, because we're doing 2 assignments at once. I'm not trying to like pile you down with homework. Check something real quick. we are going to remove $56 and $62. And $32. Okay? So, we have 2 assignments. You have a little bit of time right now. You can get started. You'll have the full class period tomorrow, so I am not moving on tomorrow. Whenever you're in here, you have to work on it. Then